All right. It's Spec Sheet. Hi, I'm Michael. How are you? Curtis ain't here tonight. Curtis don't be here. He's got some stuff going on with La Familia. And it was really last minute as well. So, in fact, tonight what we were going to do is we were just going to live stream ourselves playing Fortnite again because we had done absolutely no show prep. You know, that really is just the biggest... that's the biggest escape hatch you could possibly have as a live streamer. Didn't do any show prep. Let's play Fortnite tonight. I think this would have been the third night in a row, the third week in a row that we played Fortnite, but some stuff came up with La Familia, and so as a result, Curtis couldn't be here tonight. And so initially I thought, well, hold on. I thought maybe I'll just go ahead and play Fortnite anyway, since I hadn't really done any show prep, and I'll just have my daughter play in lieu of Curtis, have her play with me. But then I got to thinking about it, and I was like, no, I really can't have that. My daughter will probably be on here giving out bank account numbers and just any number of terrible bits of personal information that really shouldn't be released to the general public, I'm sure would find their way onto the stream. So I decided against that ultimately. But I did have a bunch of stories to talk about tonight, which I think will make the evening pass just fine. And you may have noticed the phone number. Oh, it didn't change. The phone number didn't update. Okay, well, there's a phone number scrolling, and that phone number is not correct. I changed it before the show, but for whatever reason, it hasn't updated where you're looking at on the little scroller on the screen. So if you want to call in, and this should work fabulously now. It's no longer connected to the mixer over Bluetooth, number one. Number two, it's an Android device rather than an iPhone. Which Android device is it? It's my daughter's phone. I actually had to steal my daughter's phone for a couple of hours tonight to be able to take calls on the show. And, you know, it really is quite the commentary, isn't it? That here I sit with this iPhone 14 Pro Max, and in order to reliably take phone calls, just something as simple as taking phone calls during a live stream, which seems like such an obvious thing somebody would want to do, possibly as an iPhone owner, I have to commandeer my 8-year-old daughter's Android device, her Pixel 6a, and use it instead. And of course, she had to endure the frowny face and disappointment that came along with the revelation that I would be commandeering her phone for this hour or two period of time. As I did that, though, oh, by the way, the number. Let me give you the correct number. Ignore the number at the bottom of the screen. Correct number is 424-377-2928. It is 424-377-2928. It's connected with a hard wire. See, you can do that with the iPhone 14 Pro Max. You can connect the hard wire to the mixer from the phone. But the problem is when you do that with an iPhone, first of all, you've got to buy a special cable that costs about $29 that's made by Rode, the company that made this mixer I'm using, a Rodecaster Pro 2. You have to buy this cable specifically made by Rode, and it has to comply to all sorts of specifications laid out by Apple. It's like AMC compliant, or it's like Apple Media compliant or something compliant. It's a spec produced by Apple to make lives more difficult for the users of Apple products, essentially, is what this boils down to. And I'm sure that if you were to ask Apple, why are you doing this to people, they're going to tell you that it's because of security. It's about protecting the ecosystem from failure to operate properly. It's all about giving our users the experience they expect and deserve. That's, I'm sure, along the lines of what you're going to be told by Apple as to why I have to buy a special $29 Lightning to USB-C cable to connect an iPhone 14 Pro Max to my new Rodecaster Pro 2 mixer. I don't mean I just got it, but I mean it's modern hardware. So the two ought to talk, but no. What'll happen if you connect the iPhone to this, you can get audio from the phone. So, for instance, when I do my internet karaoke, I'll connect the iPhone to the mixer and I'll use it for that. But if you want to do anything involving communications, forget about it. You can't do that with the iPhone. The communications bus is off limits. The only way to connect that to the mixer at any point is over Bluetooth. And you've heard the result of that when we've tried to do that in the past. Either the latency makes the call unlistenable, or there is a sort of, it sounds like there's a sample rate error. And so the person will get on the line. It'll be, it could be an 80-year-old adorable little old lady, and then she'll call in and be like, "What's up, y'all?" I mean, that's how it'll sound. It's not right, and it's a little frightening. It's a little off-putting. And so then you'd have to hang up on the caller, have them call back. I mean, it's not a usable experience. So here I am commandeering my daughter's Pixel 6a in order to be able to reliably take phone calls. And again, it's 424-377-2928, 424-377-2928 if you want to be on the show tonight. I'd love to talk with some people, actually. It's been a long time since we took any phone calls. I also got to thinking about something else. As I took my daughter's phone away from her tonight, I got to thinking about how, you've got this entire Gen Z group of people who seem to live in a universe where if you use an Android device, that must mean you're poor. If you use an Android device, that obviously means that you are old. You are just not with it. You're not hip. But I think I know where that comes from. I think what it comes from is all of these parents who themselves are iPhone users, are Apple product users. They don't really want to give their children expensive Apple devices as children, so they give them some bull crap, unusable, regrettable, garbage Android device, some throwaway, disposable piece of crap device that nobody would ever care about. And that's the first experience that these Gen Z young people, these children have with a mobile device. And so then they grow up and they have that association they've made with the crappy Android phone that they were forced to use as a kid. And many of these Gen Z people, these first phones they were given, we're talking about phones they were given 10 years ago or more. And even back then, the phones these kids were given would have been considered crap. So naturally, as they get older, they're going to come to they're not going to look fondly on that experience that they had. They're going to look on it with contempt. And to their mind, everything's relative. And so in their way of thinking, going to an Android device would be an obvious and a clear step backward for them. They would be going back to that bad experience that they recall from being a child. So the solution to get away from that is to use an iOS device, and they will probably never go back. And I really wonder, ultimately, if Android isn't in a whole lot of trouble. I think a lot of Google's AI pursuits have caused a lot of users of Google products to have second thoughts about Google as an organization, the way the organization is run, the culture within the organization. I think a lot of people, first of all, have started having doubts about Google as a result of some of those things that have been in the news recently. And then you also consider the fact that a lot of these people, again, are coming from a generation of people who had a bad experience with Android as a kid. And the stats show it. I mean, I think it's 75% of people under the age of 25 don't want anything to do with an Android device. Well, where does that ultimately wind up? I mean, and I see it in the real world, too. If I see somebody over the age of 40 or 50, they're infinitely more inclined to be using an Android device. And it's just hilarious. You'll see somebody standing there with a Galaxy S24 Ultra, arguably the most advanced mobile device in the world right now, and there's someone with an iPhone X laughing at them, thinking that they have one-upped the disgusting Android-using peasant. When you look at all of this and all the ill will that Google has sowed for itself, I guess is the more proper conjugation, I just wonder what the future is as far as market share. Is there any way that Google, or Android rather, can have any form of dominance in the future? Or is it going to be the case that in the United States and most of the Western world, everybody's using iOS, and in the rest of the world, the third world, everybody's using Android because they don't have these perceptions that we have. They don't care about, that's one of the big things. They don't care about iMessage overseas. Even in the Western world overseas, like iMessage and caring about iMessage is a very American thing. If you talk to a European, yeah, they're in the Western world with us, but they're not Americans, and just that mere separation causes them not to give a crap whatsoever about iMessage. They all use WhatsApp. They're all using WhatsApp. The number of people using WhatsApp, and I'll bet you, of the tens of people who will hear my voice on this show, I'll bet you 5% of you have WhatsApp installed on your phones. I mean, it's a very tiny number of people that I know in my personal life, at least who are not foreigners, who use WhatsApp. It's very unusual that I find like a native-born American who has no foreign entanglements whatsoever using WhatsApp. It's just really unusual. And then usually if I do find somebody using WhatsApp, if you ask a few questions, you'll find out that they know somebody overseas or something like that, and that winds up explaining it. But these people overseas, they're not using iMessage. They don't care about iMessage. That's not a lock-in for them at all whatsoever. And so I start to wonder if maybe it might get to the point where, at least in the United States, everybody is using iPhones and Android just sort of withers away and becomes a... it sounds a little elitist and snobby to say it, but sort of a second-tier mobile platform that people in regions of the world where money doesn't flow quite as freely all use Android instead and are happy with it. But the thing is that perception isn't going to meet reality there. The perception that iOS is superior to Android is utter rubbish. It's utter garbage. These two platforms, not only are they at parity, but I think it's plainly obvious, at least in my way of seeing things, that Android bests iOS in numerous ways. There's so many other things so many things you can do on an Android device that you just cannot do on an iPhone. Things that are made so difficult on an iPhone. I mean, you've got an iPhone and you film a video with it. Now put that video on your computer. Well, if you don't have a Mac, the only way you're going to do that with any ease whatsoever is if you have a Mac, and then maybe you can just airdrop it from the phone to the Mac. But even that, all of these features that I constantly hear people prattling on and on about, all the synchronicity between all of the Apple devices, as I bitched about on a previous show, none of that stuff works as well as advertised. I don't care what anybody says. My iMessages still don't sync between my iPhone and my Mac. When I look at I didn't mention this, when I look at the various conversation threads on my Mac inside iMessage, not only are the messages not usually properly synced, sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. That's what makes the problem ridiculously more frustrating. But the contact information isn't synced, so all I'm seeing are phone numbers. And this is the beautiful walled garden synchronized, refined, polished experience that everyone's talking about. In the Apple universe, it doesn't work very well. And as I was going to say on a previous show, I've had a much better experience using an Android phone with a Mac than I have had using an iPhone with a Mac. Because at least if I use an Android phone with a Mac, I'm just going to go to messages.google.com and put a permanent shortcut to that in the bar at the bottom of the screen, and that's how I'm going to get to my texts. And guess what? It's going to work beautifully every time. They're always going to be there. There's no questioning whether it's going to sync. It's going to work every damn time. And here pretty soon, when Apple incorporates RCS into iMessage and you're able to properly send pictures and videos and group chats and whatnot between Android and iOS, and that's coming anytime. It's going to be here anytime. Once that happens, the use case, as far as I'm concerned, if you got a Mac, you got to have an iPhone. The truth in that statement is just going to diminish even further. But even without RCS being implemented in iMessage. I still find an Android device. I know no one's going to agree with me on this. I know that. I'm not expecting anybody to agree with this. But I find the user experience with an Android phone and a Mac to be superior to that of an iPhone with a Mac. And again, I know nobody's going to agree, but with this Android phone I stole from my daughter, it's just connect a cable and boom, everything works. There's way less latency than there was previously. That was another problem, connecting the phone with the Bluetooth. As I said, that seems not to be an issue now. So yeah, if you want to call in, I'd be happy to chit-chat with you. And again, the number is 424-377-2928 if you want to be on the show. Let's see. And I have to, again, I will tell you that I've done next to no show. Look at the green screen trying to deal with my glasses. It has no idea what to do with that. I was watching a video about this the other day, in fact, and it was a video about how they filmed Mary Poppins, and they didn't use green screens. They actually used like a yellow light, and they used two cameras to film one subject. No, it was one camera, but it had a special lens that would refract the light into two separate film reels inside this one camera, and then the two images would be composited back together later on somehow. But they weren't using a green screen, and by not using a green screen, instead using the sulfur light, I believe is what they call it, or maybe it's a sodium light. I don't know. It's some element, and it starts with the letter S. Maybe it's strontium. No, it's not strontium. But anyway, one of the things that using that technology overcomes is a chroma key's inability to handle things like glasses of water, anything clear, or if somebody's wearing a veil, it doesn't handle transparency well at all. Chroma key actually has a lot of weaknesses. If you look this up, it's like, look up sodium light Mary Poppins green screen. You'll see like a 20-minute video about this. And to film Mary Poppins, they had to build these cubes that refracted the light in just a very specific way. And these cubes cost about $10,000 at the time in the 60s that they made when they made Mary Poppins. They only made 3 of these cubes. Nobody knows where they are any longer, and nobody knows how to make another one. It's like we're talking about the pyramids here. Isn't that amazing? Everybody sits around wondering if the pyramids were actually built by aliens because we can't figure out how humans did it. And then here we have these 3 cubes used to refract light so that Mary Poppins could be filmed 50 or 60 years ago. And are we going to start questioning whether aliens made those cubes? Because we can't do it now, apparently. And nobody knows where they are. And so somebody recreated that technology using modern hardware, modern what have you, whatever's available in a modern sense, as opposed to doing it the way they did back then. And it is really actually quite amazing. It handles transparency really well. They showed a girl wearing a veil and with a superimposed background, and it just handles it so perfectly. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Just the glasses thing really made me think about this. So as I said, Curtis had to bail really shorthand, like right just before the show, and we had very little time to do any show prep whatsoever, almost none. So I just pulled up all my pocket articles. We never agreed to buy only HP ink, say printer owners. They say HP sought to take advantage of customers' sunk costs. So you've got the fallacy, as it were, of sunk costs. Well, you've already got this expensive printer, so let me just scooch myself over there just a smidge. You've got this printer that you already dumped all this money into, you dumb shit, so you're obviously going to buy our ink. That's the thinking that the lawsuit alleges HP was engaged in. Lawyers representing the aggrieved were responding to in an Illinois court to an earlier HP motion to dismiss a January lawsuit. You know something? I don't really understand why, with all the options that are available to people now, why is anyone still going out and buying these printer cartridges and paying insane amounts of money for them? You've got laser printers, which most of the printing people do is black and white. Most of it, without fail, is entirely just black text on a white piece of paper and nothing more. So that's what I have sitting next to me here, is just a laser printer. It does nothing but print black, and it handles everything I need. There's no circumstance in which I need to print color. I don't need to print photos. Who prints photos anyway? Why would you print photos? Well, you might want to hang something on the wall. You might want to have something physically displayed. Well, okay. Well, if that's the case, I'm going to dump it on an SD card. I'm going to take it to the store. There's a million stores you can go to. I don't even need to name a specific one. And I'm going to have the 8x10 or whatever it is printed up and framed and bring it home and tack it up on the wall. That's how I'm going to do that. But what I'm not going to do is have my own printing factory, my own photo processing plant in my house. It's not really a necessity for the 2 to 3 colored photographs per decade that I will be requiring. It's not a necessity. So why are people going out buying these stupid printers with these stupid cartridges that cost a stupid amount of money? And by the way, the other day I saw a video of the guy tearing apart one of these printers, and not one of the printers, but one of the cartridges. He rips the top off of this thing, and inside is a sponge. That's it. There's a sponge inside there. And the sponge is saturated with ink. That is it. So the cartridge isn't even like full of ink. It's mostly air. It's a sponge inside there, saturated with ink, and to add insult to injury, as he takes his initial look at this sponge, the entire sponge isn't even saturated with ink. Like, probably 15% of the sponge is still completely snow white. This is a black ink cartridge, and inside this black ink cartridge, 15% or so of the white sponge that the ink material, the ink is saturated into, is still white, contains no ink whatsoever. And what did that cartridge cost? Probably $30, $20, who knows? Even if it's $1, it's too much. So I don't know why people are buying that when you've got laser printers that cost an insanely low amount of money per page to print with. Or even better, if you like Lexmark, if you like Epson, or any of these other, traditional printer brands, Brother, they also make inkjet printers that don't use those cartridges. They actually have tanks in them, and you literally just dump bulk amounts of ink into these tanks, and the damn thing prints for eons. I know someone who bought one of these printers, he said, 3 years ago, and has still not changed the ink in this thing, or I should say added more ink to this tank printer. Now, the initial upfront costs of the printers are a little higher, probably minimum $100, minimum. But even that minimum base printer, if it's one of these tank printers, it's probably going to do everything you need it to do. So, I mean, if you are somebody that for some reason just doesn't want to get a laser printer for some, I don't know why, for some reason, look into that. I don't understand why anybody is still doing this. And so now HP is getting sued over it. And have you ever seen a more just backward company? Have you ever seen a more like, if tech companies could be transformed into automobiles, I feel like HP would be the Edsel. The Ford Edsel, which I guess was named after the daughter or the wife of the president of Ford Motor Company at the time. But you've surely seen the Edsel. It was a car that was in production for, I think, 3 model years beginning in the late 50s. And the thing was a complete and utter disaster. And it wound up actually hurting them quite a bit. And I sort of see, but it was, I don't mean it from the standpoint of a product failure. I just mean it from the standpoint of just a clunky, unattractive, unappealing, old-fashioned, uninteresting, traditional, legacy, inertia-driven company. That's what HP is. There's nothing interesting about those people. It's just a money-printing factory, and occasionally they have to adjust the gears to keep the money-printing machine working properly. But otherwise, HP is really nothing more than that, and I don't really understand. I can't even look at HP as a technology company. I mean, there's nothing. There's no innovation happening there. Has there been in 30 years? There's not a single product HP makes that's interesting or unique or that isn't made by a million other companies, that isn't made better by other companies. I can't imagine buying a single HP product. I really can't wrap my head around it. And especially if you need a desktop PC, I don't care what anybody says, the best value in a desktop PC is a Mac Mini. And even if you are not someone who's interested in being an Apple user, if you're not a gamer, still, go get a Mac Mini, because that $600 you're going to spend is going to get you a supremely reliable machine that is like what you get is versus what you pay with a Mac Mini is just absolutely insane. You're getting something that is able to render video on par with Macs that cost $25,000 just a few short years ago. I mean, you're really getting a powerful machine for $600. It takes up a tiny amount of space. Excuse me, I believe I've got the vapors. It takes up a tiny amount of space. It uses a minimal amount of electricity. It's essentially a mobile chipset, but you'll never know it because it's in a desktop form factor. There's just so much bullcrap that comes along with owning a desktop PC that you're not going to have to deal with if you own a Mac Mini. So if you're considering buying a PC for the desktop, just get a Mac Mini, I would say, and be done with it. Unless you've got some specific Windows requirement. There's a piece of software that maybe is like highly specific and vertical software that just doesn't have a Mac version, which even that's really unusual. But if you're a gamer, I would say forget about it. Don't even bother yourself with getting a Mac. Just don't. The internet is littered with forum posts full of people who own Macs for whatever reason, are gamers who decided they were still going to buy a Mac, and now they're out traipsing about the internet trying to find help in forums to learn how to use their Mac to do the things that they used to be able to do on Windows, when they could have just simply used a Windows machine and they could have been done with it. But no. But I still have to say, I can't imagine buying a single HP product, and I particularly can't imagine buying an HP desktop. Hell, I can't imagine buying an HP laptop. I've taken apart and reassembled thousands, I'm not exaggerating, thousands of HP laptops. And I can tell you that the engineering is absolutely bottom of the barrel, the bare minimum in terms of quality controls just to get by so that that product can be put on a shelf and consumed by you. Nothing more. There's absolutely no consideration given to quality whatsoever. And then when you buy the product, it's loaded up with just heaps of adware and spyware and just cruft. Just crap you don't want on your computer. Dell, the same. I can't imagine buying a single Dell product anymore. And even Alienware, which is owned by Dell and has been for probably 10 or 15, probably closer to 15 years, Alienware has been owned by Dell. I'm sure all of the quality creep that occurred in Dell's mainline systems over the years, I'm sure that's also found its way into the Alienware line. I would imagine at this point, Alienware is nothing but a brand name with a fancy case containing the same hardware that all of the other Dell machines contain. I can't imagine. It wouldn't make any business sense for it to be anything else. Just a moment. By the way, the secret to amazing coffee, get yourself an AeroPress, A-E-R-O, press. That's step one. Step two, sweeten with maple syrup. And I'm not talking that corn syrup fake shit. I'm talking real maple syrup. If you don't do it like that, well, then you're just, you like chemicals, don't you, boy? And also a hint of vanilla, not some vanilla flavor. You need actual vanilla, legitimate vanilla extract. A little bit of milk just to take some of the edge off and maybe bring the temp down a smidge. And boy, you've got yourself a passport to paradise right there. I really wish you were here so that you could appreciate this. I would let you sip. Well, I would have a few questions first about communicable diseases, but should you answer appropriately and as hoped, you might get a sip. Anyway, phone number again if you want to be on the show, 424-377-2928. I'm fully prepared to sit here and talk this entire time without a single call. If that's what it takes to achieve tonight's goal of delivering a show to you, I'm going to do that. But it would be nice to chit-chat with somebody here or there. So don't buy an HP printer. In fact, don't buy any printer that uses cartridges. It's absolutely insane. You have no regard for your own money whatsoever if you do that. It's just a terrible, terrible product to purchase. I can't recommend it for anybody. The Windows 11 start menu didn't have enough ads, so Microsoft is going to go ahead and start adding some more. They're going to show promoted apps within the recommended section of the start menu. The functionality was spotted in testing recently when a keen-eyed user noticed a subtle change in the text description of a Windows 11 setting. Microsoft has promoted apps in the start menu before, though that decision proved controversial. And so we're going to start seeing ads in Windows 11. Gee, it's hard to figure out why it is that, I don't know, only 25 to 26% of the computer using world is using Windows 11, this version of Windows that's been out for how many years now? I think Windows 11's been around for 5 years now. Let's just go ahead and find out the answer to that question right now, shall we? Oh boy, I just messed that all up. I'm going to have to, there we go. Oh my goodness. I can't talk and host a show and type at the same time. I need a producer. When did Windows 11 come out? Let's find out exactly. October 5th of 2021. Okay, so we're coming up on 3 years at the end of this year. I was kind of close, if you want to call it that. And it's been out all this time, and they've still only managed to get about 25 or 26% of the computer-using world on board. A few obvious reasons. Number one, the system requirements in order to be a Windows 11 user, in order to put Windows 11 on your computer, are so onerous, and they're so capricious and arbitrary as well, one of which, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, the Trusted Platform module, which is an encryption protocol in hardware form that's built into the motherboards on countless machines around the world today. And it's entirely been compromised. It's a useless form of security technology that does absolutely nothing for you, yet its inclusion in your system and its enablement are required as a prerequisite in order to install Windows 11 on your computer. I don't know why. I mean, considering, and this was big news a few weeks ago, that the TPM module, the TPM protocol was compromised, and it's irreversible, by the way. The means by which it was compromised, it was hacked, as the kids say. It was cracked, and the cat is out of the bag. It's irreversible because this is a hardware solution to what, in many instances, is a software problem, but they decided they would make it a hardware problem by including this TPM module in all these machines. Well, these onerous restrictions obviously play into the low adoption rate for Windows 11, but also, has anybody just considered the fact that maybe Windows 11 just sucks? Has that been taken into consideration as a possibility? I mean, look at the taskbar in Windows 11. I don't even know yet if they have enabled like actual, in classic Windows, you've got the taskbar at the bottom, and when an application is open, it has the rectangular entry down there at the bottom of the taskbar, and you see that for every application that's open, and any application that's not open, its icon is shrunk down to just icon size. Well, Windows 11 did away with that because why? Fuck you. That's why. They just decided, you know what? We haven't fucked our users hard enough, I think, since Windows Vista probably, or maybe Windows 8. So it's time to get back to the fucking of our users. And what we're going to do is we're going to just eliminate expanding taskbar icons so that as you're using your computer, you can't really tell which applications you've already got open. There's probably a dot or some stupid bullshit like that on the icons that, oh, this will get you by. Well, fuck you. That's Microsoft's philosophy. You know this stuff that you've came to know and appreciate about Windows over the years? The little things that make it such an enjoyable platform that you really come to appreciate, particularly when you move to another platform like Linux or Mac OS. Yeah, all those little things, all those subtleties, all those expectations you've come to have of Windows these decades now. Fuck you. We're getting rid of that shit. Shut the fuck up. That's Microsoft's philosophy. So you had to hack Windows 11. I haven't had Windows 11 on any of my machines in many months now, so I don't know if this is fixed yet. I had read that it was in the pipeline through an update that it was going to be fixed, and they were going to re-enable the full-size taskbar entries whenever you have an application open. But I don't know if that update ever came down. And then you open the start menu, and if I hit the start menu, isn't it plainly obvious to anyone that probably the only thing I want to see is the full list of applications on the computer, just right away. What else could doesn't Microsoft have metrics for the shit that people are clicking on whenever they open the start menu? You telling me Microsoft doesn't know what kind of things people are clicking on when they open the start menu? Surely Microsoft can see that people are not opening the start menu to do Bing searches. Surely Microsoft can see that. I saw somebody, and then you've got this start menu. It's entirely unreactive. It's like it hangs and it stutters and it stops. And I saw someone the other day who said, I love pressing the start menu and typing Notepad and pressing enter and then seeing that Windows has done a Bing search in Microsoft Edge for the word Oatpad. And that is exactly the user experience everybody's having in Windows 11. It's such a piece of shit. And now here we are. We're coming up on this deadline where Microsoft is getting ready to phase out Windows 10. I think it's going to happen in about 18 months, but they're already putting nag screens on people's machines, warning you that, they're coming to get you. The Gestapo's coming if you don't get on board with the Windows 11 thing. And it's really asinine. Although apparently you can I just thought this ads article was interesting because it sort of highlights everything that really sucks about Windows 11. Let me see. Yeah. Want to keep using Windows 10 safely? Microsoft wants $61. So when we reach this security patch limit coming up in about 18 months, you're not going to receive updates anymore unless you pay the $61. And that's going to carry you until 2027 sometime. And you'll continue receiving security updates. So you mean to tell me Microsoft is going to actually take the time to have software engineers sit down and produce these updates and push them out to people and organizations who've paid for the updates, and users and organizations who haven't paid for these updates are just simply not going to receive them. So Microsoft is going to make its own ecosystem, its own Windows ecosystem. This isn't a tech show. If I don't if I don't shoehorn the word shoehorn, whatever the fucking word is I'm looking for, if I don't shoehorn the word ecosystem into the broadcast at some point, you haven't done a proper tech show. But Microsoft is going to damage its own ecosystem by allowing tons of its users to continue operating network-connected machines connected to the internet without security updates that exist. These updates will exist. They have already been produced, and the cost for Microsoft to just allow everybody to go ahead and have them would be zero. It would cost nothing because the infrastructure is already there. The updates are already produced and written and published and being pushed out. There's no cost to just let everybody have it. But Microsoft doesn't care. It's decided that it would let you instead, since you've chosen not to pay the $61, just languish in the desert of malware and security holes and zero-day exploits and what have you, because you didn't pay that $61. Your other option, if you don't want to pay that $61, is move up to Windows 11, which, for all the reasons listed a moment ago, isn't the most attractive option. And the other problem I'm having recently is I've got a nice Dell all-in-one machine. It's kind of funny. I'm sitting here telling you, if you buy a Dell, you're dead to me. And let me tell you about my Dell. But it is a nice machine, I have to admit. It's an all-in-one and shipped with Windows 11. I immediately rolled it back to Windows 10. But I'm finding now that it is getting pushed up to Windows 11 no matter what. I mean, you walk away from this, you go and you step into the bathroom. All you got to do is walk away from this computer, drop a deuce, and come back. And hey, you got Windows 11. What do you think about them apples? Put that in your pipe and smoke it. It's just I can't get past how stupid this is. Upgrading somebody to a different version of an operating system on a PC without their consent. It's just absurd. I can't believe this is even happening. But I've come to the conclusion that the only way I'm going to be able to prevent this is to go into the firmware of this Dell. And here's a bit of advice for those of you listening. If you would like to prevent your Windows 10 machine from updating to Windows 11, what you need to do is go into the UEFI settings, as they used to call it, the BIOS, and you need to disable the Trusted Platform Module chip, disable the TPM security chip, reboot the machine, and Windows 11 is going to be considered inaccessible to you from that point forward. Your machine will consider itself ineligible to do the upgrade, and that'll be that. But you're going to want to do this before the update process touches the update server and learns about the Windows 11 upgrade for the first time. So really the best way to do this would be to go in, do a disabling of the TPM module in the UEFI, and then reinstall Windows 10 clean with the TPM disabled, so the TPM never even shows up in Device Manager. It's dead to Windows. It doesn't exist to Windows. Windows doesn't even see it. Windows doesn't even know that it ever existed in the past. And then, from that point forward, throughout the update process, you will never be nagged about Windows 11 in any way whatsoever. But I've read that if you have been nagged about Windows 11, and then you go and disable the TPM module in the UEFI and go back in, it won't update to Windows 11, but it will continue to nag you about it, and you will see that in perpetuity. Every time you look at the Windows update screen, you're going to see bullshit about Windows 11 in there. So disable TPM, do a clean install of Windows 10, and then you're probably going to be fine. And I haven't actually done this myself, but I mean, I'm just thinking logically here. I can't imagine why that wouldn't work. It seems to me it has to. So, in fact, I think I'm going to do that after the show tonight. I'm going to go disable the TPM module on my Dell, and I'll report back. Oh, I meant to tell you, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. If you saw last week's show, I had Rocco. That's how attached I was. We really built a bond. I almost forgot his name just now. Rocco the squirrel. He was an adorable little thing, and I was pretty sad that he didn't make it. In fact, I showed him to you on last week's show. Just held him here in my hands. Just this adorable little squirrel. Just this innocent little sliver of life clinging by a thread. We did everything we could. And he just died the next morning. In fact, after the show, we found him. He was just gone. And that night after the show, I had been able to here and there get him to drink the Pedialyte because we were really worried about his dehydration. I was able to get him to drink that, but I wasn't able to get him to drink the puppy milk. But after the show that night, I was able to get him to drink some, and I thought, holy shit, he's going to make it. Oh my God, he's going to make it. I can't believe it. But throughout the whole time we had him, his head was always like, or like you'd put him down in his little enclosure or whatever, and he would just like go down with his nose just like into the floor. just like no power on his head at all. He wasn't always like that, but a lot of the time he was. So we think he had a head injury of some kind. And in fact, when we found him, as I said, he had a little bit of blood coming out of his nose. So he probably had a head injury of some type. And I mean, we could have pumped 500 pounds of Pedialyte and puppy milk into him. There was no saving him, I guess. But that's just a little update for you. Yeah, I'll disable the TPM module in my Dell and find out what happens. Let's take a look here at the chat and see what's been going on. You gonna turn those body cameras on? I'm not sure what that's a reference to, but let's just say cameras are occasionally pointed at my body. Let's see. We've got an Allahu Akbar from Asuka Langley. Obviously, Asuka celebrating the end of Ramadan. And I tell you what, let me tell you something. If you want to have the absolute best food you've ever had in your life, go into a mosque at the end of Ramadan. Holy shit. Well, first of all, I promise you'll be welcomed in. They don't give a shit who you are or what you look like or what religion you are. They really don't care. I promise you are going to have the absolute best food you've ever tasted in your life. If you've never had Arab food, I know you people think that Italian food is, the Italians' gift to the world, their cuisine. Go fuck yourself. Italian food is shit. Spaghetti and meatballs. Get the fuck out of here with that. You kidding me? No. Italian food's a joke compared to Arab food. Go to a mosque at the end of Ramadan. I promise you're going to experience flavors and just like it's going to unlock parts of your brain that had never been utilized. You're going to taste things that you didn't know existed. It's really something. And so I'm sure Asuka is currently in a state of celebration. Let's see. Anthony says he might call in tonight, although he has yet to do so. Again, the number 424-377-2928. It is 424-377-2928. Let's see. I saw somebody mentioning ghost art. Are we coming up on the, let's see, I guess it'd be the 6-year anniversary of Art Bell's death this year? That's hard to believe, isn't it? Oh my God. I think he died in 2018. I'm pretty sure it was April of 2018. I don't remember the exact day. It was the 13th, wasn't it? Because it was on Friday the 13th. So that was today. Holy shit. Yeah, that today is the 6-year anniversary. Holy shit. I'm glad I looked at the chat. I did not realize that. Anthony says he's lost track of how many Android devices he's vaporized. Yeah, it's much healthier to vaporize them rather than burn them. Ghost Art says the Androids are making a comeback. Well, I think in the United States, that might be a possibility. I think Google's doing a good thing with Pixel devices. The problem there is you can't trust Google to follow through in any regard when it comes to the products that they produce. You just can't. There are websites that have like an entire section just dedicated to an entire list of all the products that Google has canceled over the years. Google has canceled. Okay, this is the Google graveyard. Here we are. VPN by Google One. I mean, honestly, was there ever a universe in which you were going to use Google's VPN and feel like you were achieving something? Google Jamboard? I don't know what that is. It's a web and native whiteboard app that offered a rich collaborative experience. Boy, that sounds shitty. I'm so tired of people thinking I want to collaborate. Fuck you. Maybe I don't want to collaborate. Maybe collaboration is what I'm trying to get away from doing by sinking myself into my electronic devices. I don't want to collaborate. I'm escaping collaboration. Jamboard, more collaborative bullcrap. Dropcam. That's a line of Wi-Fi video streaming cameras acquired by Google in 2014. And then subsequently killed off. I don't remember Dropcam, but I do remember the name. Google Podcasts, piece of crap product, no settings, no ability to configure anything, learned nothing from the other podcast listening solutions that existed out there. They just produced their own thing that gave a big middle finger to every standard and norm that people had come to expect from a podcasting app. So it sucked. And nobody wanted to use it, and so now it's going away. What the shock, you know? You produce a substandard product, and then people don't use it, and it's really shocking when eventually it goes away. Keen, don't know. Google Domains, I can't imagine buying a domain name from Google. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster. What kind of speech on the internet would cause my domain name purchased from Google to be killed? I can only imagine the limitless possibilities there. That sounds like a fabulous option. Buying a domain name from Google. Sign me right up. Google Optimize, don't know. Pixel Pass, that sounds like some pay now, get maybe something later bullcrap. Google Cloud, Internet of Things Core, whatever. Google Album Archive. YouTube Stories, is that going away? Originally, YouTube Reels allowed creators to post temporary videos that would expire after 7 days. It was 5 years old. Okay, so YouTube still has Reels. It's just that they don't really go away like that anymore. So have they really gotten rid of anything? I mean, if anything, they're keeping more because nothing's getting deleted now as it was. Let's see. Grasshopper, don't know. Google Currents, I remember seeing that, but I never knew what it was. Street View standalone app. Okay, yeah, I guess you're only allowed to use the one that's built into Mac. I never knew that there was a standalone Street View app. Jack Hard. Listen, all these other people out there with their Jack Soft app, we've got Jack Hard, and we think you're going to like that a little better. Killed about 1 year ago, Jack Hard was a small tag to make it easier and more intuitive for people to interact with technology in their everyday lives without having to constantly pull out their devices or touch screens. It was about 9 years old. I mean, look at this. Stadia, OnHub, code competitions, originals. I mean, this is, wow, look at all the scrolling I have to do through all these products. Look at this. This is all stuff killed by Google. Look at all these products. I don't know how many are on this list. This is an insane amount of stuff here. Look at all that. I'm still scrolling. Wow. That's unbelievable. Oh, you remember Google Buzz? What a pile of shit that was. My goodness. Google Notebook. It allowed users to save and organize clips of information while conducting research online. Can you imagine how many server resources it took for Google to allow you to save copied and pasted text in notepad format or like in sticky pad format, basically? That must have been so resource intensive. I totally understand why they killed it. Unbelievable. So when you look at something like the Pixel and you wonder, what is the success of this product going forward? What is the future of Android? Will Android sort of stop the bleeding here in the United States, the bleeding that's happening in favor of iOS and Apple? Are they going to stop it somehow? Well, I think the only way they're probably going to stop it is through the Pixel line and Samsung doing a good job with their phones, which Samsung has really upped its game, I think, in the last couple of Galaxy revisions. But, I mean, those are very expensive phones, and I don't know. I think once you get the idea into people's minds that product A, Android, it's for little kids or old people, and it's an inferior product, and product B, iOS, is for young, hip people, and it's a really good product that just works perfectly every time, has no issues whatsoever. Once you get that perception baked into people's minds, I think it's a little hard to overcome that. And so I don't know. I don't know if Android is going to stop the bleeding, but every year, Android's market share relative to iOS in the United States is decreasing. And as the older population of the United States dies off, that market share, it looks to me, of iOS is only going to continue to increase as time goes on. What does that mean? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. And I mean, I don't really think you can trust Google to do the right thing with the Pixel line, is I guess my point in showing you killedbygoogle.com. I don't think they can be trusted to stick it out. Even if the Pixel line is selling well, Google will invent some schizophrenic reason that it needs to be shit-canned. Watch and see. The Pixel 8 had 7 years of operating system updates promised to those who purchased it. And I read the other day, I don't know the specifics of this, but I read the other day that Google is already backing out on that they're already sort of starting to hem and haw about this 7-year update cycle promise that they made upon release of the Pixel 8. I don't know how true that is, but it seems that regular consumers are at least perceiving that Google has started hemming and hawing, which is as bad as them actually hemming and hawing. Perception is equally as important as important as reality. So I don't know what's going to happen about Androids making a comeback. I don't know how that's going to go. But if Google is the only guiding force we have to sort of shepherd Android into the future and keep it a platform that people want to use, well, then I think Android is in trouble, because I think Google is a rudderless ship that is run more by politics than by technology. Google's no longer a technology company. It's a political entity. And when I look at lists of words and phrases, like words and phrases that are standard words and phrases that are used in the technology sector to describe things you do as an engineer, as a software engineer, that these various phrases are no longer allowed to be used. I don't have the list of all these phrases that are no longer allowed to be used, but you can easily find the list if you just search around a little bit. But it's like normal human speech that you're not allowed to use in emails within the company, because it might be considered offensive to this group or offensive to that group. And like every single, I'm seeing stories featuring ex-Google employees saying that these concerns are built into every move that Google is making today, that these concerns are taken into account first and foremost before the technology implications of whatever move they're making are taken into account. The political side of things is looked at first. And I just don't see how that can be a good way forward for a tech company. I really don't see how that's a pathway to success moving into the future. I really don't. So if Google is all people have to hang their hat on in terms of seeing Android into the future, I think that's a problem. Let's continue looking at the chat here. Anthony says, are sodium vapors the lights that glow yellow/orange? Yes, they are. It's a sort of an amberish color instead of a green screen. He says, I have memories of when I was little. I knew we were in New York City because the highways were lit up by orange glowing sodium vapor lights. I believe that's what they are. Yep. And he says they're still used on roads like the Cross Bronx Expressway and Grand Central Parkway. When I'm driving, I see them. Are they so? That's interesting. I'm surprised that any form of an incandescent light would be used anywhere at all, at least as far as public lighting is concerned. I saw this picture the other day of this lamplighter, like at the end of the 19th century. These guys used to go around the city with these gigantic, just super long poles, and they would use these poles to light lamps, gas lamps, I guess. And then I guess they'd have to be put out the next day and then relit. And so these guys, this is all they did. This was their living. They were lamplighters. And I was thinking, as the stagecoach builder, you know, the stagecoach mechanic, as the automobile was coming along, I'm sure they just poo-pooed that and, you know, just, oh, that's it's a terrible idea. The motorized, the horseless carriage is going nowhere. Nobody wants that. And I'm thinking about these lamplighters, and these guys are probably just like, you know, electricity's bullshit, homie. I mean, it's just a fad. It's just a fad. I mean, electricity is such bullshit. And by the way, it kills elephants. Ugh. I don't know if you knew that. Electricity kills elephants. So, I mean, I'm going to keep lighting lamps. You people can just play around with your electricity and have your fun with your electricity, but I'm out here doing real work. I'm out here actually helping humanity. I'm actually benefiting society in some measurable way. You guys toy around with your silly little electricity, your silly little elephant-killing electricity. I'll be out here lighting these lamps and laughing all the way to the bank. Yeah, I'm sure those lamp-lighters were not the biggest fans of electricity. That's surprising to see they're still using those lights, though. Let's see. Scrolling down in the chat. Asuka has Windows 11. He hates it. Of course you do. It's terrible. Eventually, I guess everybody's going to be forced into Windows 11. But I'm kind of wondering if, since these updates that are being pushed out to people who are paying the $61, since they're out there, they exist, they're in the wild, surely those can be packaged up for other people. There used to be this, it was a Firefox extension, I believe, that you could install that would install all of the Windows updates for you without you having to do it through the official Windows update process. I remember this being something that I used back in the Windows XP. Why do these thumbs up things keep happening? This is a stupid setting on this Mac that I don't even know where to disable it. Can you believe that that's even enabled by default? That is some Fisher-Price shit right there. Look at that. If I do that or anything that looks like a thumbs up, go fuck your mother. That's just terrible. That makes me mad. It's like, this is some Fisher-Price shit right here, isn't it? I don't even remember what I was talking about here. It upset me so badly. Let's see. Yeah, we're going to be forced into Windows 11, but I'm kind of wondering if something like that thing that I used back in the Windows XP days might come about. The reason it existed was because so many people were pirating Windows XP, and in those days you couldn't get updates from the official Windows Update mechanism that was built into Windows if you had a pirated copy of Windows. So you would install this Firefox extension and you would go to this website that would then use that extension to scan your machine and provide you all the updates that had been pushed by Microsoft up to that point with no copy protection checks, no license lookup, no nothing. And a lot of people used that. And I'm sort of wondering if something akin to that might come about in order to overcome these update issues here. Mean Baby says, I've gone all Cape Fear. I look like a savage beast, pure buccaneer. Fantastic. You know, I don't know that I'm necessarily going for anything here. I just haven't felt like shaving. I really haven't. And I don't have to, so I don't. Let's see. Yep, that's it, Anthony. Take a shit. Now you have Windows 11. Nice callback. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, Mean Baby wants me to take off my shirt and rub my pepperoni nipples. I don't know that that's... I know that would bring in the subs, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Yeah, it was Rocco, the squirrel Asuka, not Richard. Rocco. He's no longer with us. We did give him a proper burial. It was a nice little ceremony. There were tears shed. My oldest daughter was significantly more upset by his passing than my youngest daughter. She just, I told her that Rocco had died, and she paused, and she had a pensive look on her face for about 4 or 5 seconds, and then she got on the Oculus. So, let's see. Asuka says Italian food is basically Mexican food without the beans. I would almost sort of agree with that, and maybe more salt, more cheese. Let's see. Anthony says he's going to call in. Asuka says he's pirating all of Art Bell's shows. That sure is easy to do. I mean, there's that gigantic Art Bell torrent out there that's like, let me just pound the mic with my glasses. That's about 65 gigabytes, I believe. Isn't that kind of cool? You can see the screen through my holes in my racing seat. That is actually kind of cool. Let's see. Yeah, Mean Baby says Anthony's calling in, but I have yet to see any evidence of that. If you're calling the number at the bottom of the screen, again, that is not the correct number. It is 424-377-2928. That is 424-377-2928. And Anthony says life starts at 40. I sort of have a tendency to agree with that, actually. I feel like my life is in a better place right now. I'm enjoying myself more. I'm more contented. I feel like there is truth to that. I feel like in a lot of ways I'm enjoying myself a lot more than I have at any prior period of my life. And I'm well into my 40s. Yeah, there should be no dial options. I mean, it should just call and it rings up and I answer your call and that's that. Please unban Swishy Pants. I don't know that anybody's been banned. He says it just automatically dumped his call. Huh. Yeah, and I'm looking at the call history here. I see no history of anybody having called at all. Anthony says it hung up on him. Fuck it. Yeah, I get it. Mean Baby says I'm a terrible leader. Actually, in this regard, I am. The phone call thing has just been a disaster. I kind of think maybe what I need to do is get a less electronic means of accepting phone calls. I think I've got another solution, actually, that I'm going to employ. It's... Do you remember those... Shit, I wish I could remember the name of this company, but they made these devices that you would connect to your internet connection, and then you connect a standard home telephone to this device, and now you're using your Google voice phone line as your standard home phone. And it worked fabulously. It was flawless. And I'm kind of thinking maybe I need to do something like that because there's a lot more simplicity to that than using this mobile device. I mean, like right now, what the phone number that I've given you guys to call, it's using the app Text Now. I see no reason why that shouldn't work. Anthony has given a phone number here. I'm going to try calling that phone number. It's probably a number that I'm going to regret calling, I think. There's that. And then the last four there. Do this. Nope. First, I guess I should try. I'll send a text message so that I can do this. Okay. Let's see how this goes. This is a show that places outbound phone calls. That's how burgeoning the listening audience of this radio show is. We really have to beat them off with sticks at the gate to keep them off of our phone lines. It's just such a massive listening audience.
Forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
Okay, well, hey, I tried. You can't say I didn't give it the old college try. Yeah, I just tried calling you. I don't know what to say there. Yeah, that's the phone number. Yeah, I don't know. That was probably one of his ex-girlfriends that he's got me calling. It's probably the self-unaliving helpline in some town. Mean Baby says I sexed his mother. I did not, I can assure you. How old is your mother? When did this happen, allegedly? Okay, well, enough of that. Let's see here. I think I have a couple other things I want to talk about real quick. This is kind of marginal. Amazon has to pay 525 million in a cloud storage patent fight. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the chat. I had the impression that oh, Anthony wasn't ready. Okay, I'm going to try again. Here we go. Remember when 525 million would actually cause a company pain? Not anymore. Not for a company like Amazon. It's actually a laughable fine for anything that Amazon could do. Okay, well, Anthony, you are an unreliable radio show caller. I just want to put that out there right now. Anthony said, I think the problem is on your end, Anthony. I think you're calling from a jitterbug or something's going on over there, and it's just not working right. Mexican TV outlet accidentally airs some dude's balls during the solar eclipse. This Mexican news channel was showing listener-submitted videos of the eclipse, and in the course of doing so, one of the videos they showed was, here it is, it's pixelated. It's just some guy's balls on the news. I think that's fabulous, and I think that the mainstream news, like the old-style traditional news, with the news anchor sitting there in front of the camera, you know, telling you what happened today, that whole traditional paradigm of news delivery, I think that needs to be mocked in every conceivable way. And somehow getting your balls displayed on the news, I think that's a fabulous way to go about that. Oh, here's something great. So, if you've ever doubted cloud storage, here's just yet another reason why you're wrong to doubt it. After pushing cloud storage, TV provider to auto-delete 61-day-old DVR recordings. So, I was looking today at this case you can buy. It looks like a Samsonite suitcase. It's something that you could easily walk through an airport with, and you could put it in checked baggage or whatever. I mean, it's a standard, like just a case you would carry around, and inside it are like 368 terabytes of storage. I mean, just a massive amount of storage in the hands of one person. And you see something like that, and you realize how commoditized storage has now become. And you look at stuff like this, and it's just so stupid. I mean, traditional cable TV companies are already, a dying breed. Their days are already numbered. So anything they can do to not piss their customers off, anything they can do to show their customers they are still relevant compared to and relative to the other entertainment viewing options their customers have, that's a good thing. But knowing this, and despite this, there's a Canadian telecom called Bell Canada that's decided that their customers who have DVR recordings stored in the cloud, those things are all going bye-bye after 61 days. And their explanation is, 99% of all recordings don't get viewed again after the first viewing. That's their explanation as to what makes this okay. It's just yet another example of people being promised great things as it relates to the cloud, and then the cloud ultimately betrays you. It happens every time, whether you're trying to listen to Apple Music and nothing's working, and you want to show someone, you want to play some song for somebody, or you want to impress somebody with the lossless high-resolution audio that you have at your disposal in Apple Music, and you press play and just nothing happens. Or you're on PayPal and you're just trying to see the numbers load up on the screen, and it takes 10 years for it to occur, if it ever does. There's countless examples of the cloud sucking, and this is yet another we can add to the list. It's really ironic considering how network speeds are consistently increasing on average for everybody every year. Storage space is becoming more and more commoditized, but then you look at stuff like this, where cloud operators are beginning to make themselves more restrictive, despite the decreasing cost of providing these services year over year. It's really amazing. And when you think about what it costs to purchase services from one of these traditional companies, like you go to Spectrum, Comcast, any of these sorts of companies and buy traditional TV service, which I haven't paid for since I think 2009, there's no way you're getting out of that arrangement without paying $120 to $150 a month. I mean, that's probably bare minimum. And to think that they can't do any better than this with that amount of money being slung around every month, that's really amazing to me. The Roborock S8 Max V Ultra, there's a name that just rolls right off the tongue, is the best robot vacuum I've tested. This thing does look actually quite interesting. I had for a year the Roomba, The Roomba what is it, like the J7 or it's the i7, that's right. i7. I had this thing for about a year, and it sometimes works well, but the problem is if you are a normal human being who occasionally has a sock on the floor here or there, or let's say you're a normal human being who has, I don't know, a dog in your home, guess what? This is not going to go well for you. This thing is going to suck your socks up into the brushes and get jammed, and then what happens is the Roomba just locks up and goes into this state of utter, it goes comatose, essentially. And it just sits there in the middle of the floor until you come home from work 7 or 8 hours later and pull the sock out and physically pick it up and put it back on the base. I don't know what it does to itself in those 7 or 8 hours as it sits there with a sock lodged in the cleaning bristles that causes the battery to go completely dead to the point that the Roomba just goes, I'm not doing anything. And it just sits there in the middle of the floor, and you find it and trip over it when you come home from work. I don't understand what happens that causes that. You would think that as soon as it realizes it's got something it's sucked up, it would just reverse, spit the thing out, back up. You would think that this would have been nipped in the bud. You would think this is something that they have figured out how to deal with, but no, they have not. But even more fun, get a dog that occasionally poops on the floor and use one of these Roombas. And what's really fun is when it sucks the shit up and it grinds up and gets real just nice and mushed up in those spinning little cylinders under there. They're not brushes. They're not blades. They're like cylinders that have little scratchy patterns on them. That's what it uses to pull everything up in there. But it doesn't quite work so well when you run over feces. That's not the best material for these robots, I have come to find. Fresh, putrid, warm, steam-emitting shit does not go into these robots very efficiently. I know that's a shocking revelation to the listening audience, but you're going to want to avoid shit getting sucked into your Roomba. This is something that in the year 2023, when I got one of these, they apparently had still not figured out how not to suck warm animal shit into the inner workings of your vacuum cleaner. With all of the technology, all the sensors, all the cameras, all the AI, all the updates, the firmware updates, all the room mapping, the microphones, I think it's got microphones in it. Couldn't you hear my dog shitting? Couldn't you like triangulate that sound and kind of approximately know where my dog dropped a deuce so that perhaps you could avoid that region of the house? Or maybe, I don't know, maybe if you... I don't know. There's just got to be a solution. Stop sucking shit into my Roomba. That's what I want. Stop it. So I didn't actually buy this Roomba. What I did was this lease thing. You pay, I think it's $30 a month. Now, mind you, one of these Roombas is like $800. It comes with a robot, and it also has the base that the thing drives up onto that A, charges it, and B, sucks all the trash and debris out of the Roomba into a larger receptacle inside that base. one of these things is about $800, I think. And so they have this thing where you can lease one for like $30 a month. Maybe it's $29 a month. And that's what you pay for, I think it's a year and a half. And in exchange for that, you get all of the supplies sent to you automatically. The system automatically notifies the manufacturer when you're running low on any supplies, or you need new brushes on the bottom of the Roomba, or you need the bag replaced. If you step on this thing and break it in half because you're a big fat ass, they're going to replace it for free. Any accidental damage, they'll take care of it for you, no questions asked. But between that, the zero risk of damage, and all the supplies getting sent to you, and you don't have to actually pay for the full price of one of these things, I think that's a pretty good deal. And when you consider what the average lifespan probably realistically is of one of these robot vacuums that's randomly tooling around your house all day long, bumping into stuff, sucking up God knows what. Hold on, I need a sip. If you get a year and a half of use out of one of those that you buy on your own, you might have done pretty well, actually, because these things take a lot of abuse in the course of what they do day after day. So it makes a lot of sense to buy it in a circumstance where somebody else is going to take on all the risk of accidental damage or non-accidental damage, just a faulty part needing to be replaced. But I just got sick of the thing nagging me constantly, day after day. It sucks up a sock, and it just stops moving, and it stays there in the middle of the floor all day until I come home from work. Or it sucks up dog shit, and next thing you know, you're cleaning this thing out. And let me just tell you, you're not being gentle with it because you don't care, because if the thing breaks, well, who cares? You're going to send it back anyway. But ultimately, when the lease term went by, I did not renew this thing. And surprise, surprise, they didn't even want it back. So I just threw it out into the trash heap. Off it goes. It's no good after that because they have a special firmware built into these lease program Roombas, where if you are not actively paying for the monthly subscription, the firmware shuts the Roomba down and it will not work. There's no way around it. You can't flash a new firmware on it. There's nothing you can do. It's a paperweight, which, boy, that's environmentally friendly, isn't it? Just a big lump of plastic and wiring and motors and sensors and cameras and bullshit that's just going to get thrown into a dump because you're not paying $29.95 per month any longer. But I have to say, it really did keep the place clean when it wasn't busy sucking up shit or getting choked by sucks. Microsoft knows you love tricking its AI chatbots into doing weird stuff, and it's designing prompt shields to stop you. So just in case you found some way to make Microsoft's AI interesting or useful for yourself or entertaining, Microsoft's going to make sure that you can't do that. As is the case with most AI, it seems to me, most publicly accessible AI, at least any AI produced by the big name entities out there, Chat AI from OpenAI, any of Google's AIs, any of Microsoft's AIs, even Grok from Twitter to a lesser extent. All of these mainstream AIs, they have all these safeguards built into them to keep you from having any fun, to keep you from engaging in any of the like silly little tricky activity that human beings would engage in naturally with this technology. I mean, just the natural fun you think you would have with an AI chatbot, Microsoft's just going to make sure that you don't get to have any of that. And they're going to render their AI as vanilla and useless and inoffensive and please everybody as possible, to the point where it's just as useless as you probably expect it to be. And Qualcomm's new audio chips can make cheaper headphones sound more expensive. It's a shame, really, that rather than just do what needs to be done, these headphone manufacturers are using trickery to make their headphones sound good. That's why I recommend the, what in the hell are these things called? This is why this show is known for having such a long list of advertisers. This is the Status Pro Between. That's what they look like. When you put them in your ear, they kind of go in like this, and then the little rectangular part kind of hangs down. But what makes, and here's what the case looks like. I think you can get these for about $100. I managed to get these for free, actually. I probably wouldn't own them otherwise because I don't really care too much for earbuds. But one of the things that these have going for them is they have a triple driver that handles separately the high end, the mid range, and the bass. Most earbuds use algorithmic audio trickery to fool you into believing that there's some kind of a separation between these different frequency ranges in the audio that you're listening to. But the Status Between Pros actually have 3 drivers inside, and each range of the audio is separately driven through any one of these 3 distinct drivers. And as a result of that, they sound absolutely phenomenal. They sound better by far than any earbud I have ever listened to. I just am not a big fan of the form factor. I have always had a hard time finding any earbuds that would stay in my ear with regularity and with reliability and with a sense of comfort and confidence. You know, maybe they do stay in, but if you're not confident about it, it's going to make it equally as uncomfortable, just that perception that something's going to go wrong. That's all it really takes. It doesn't necessarily have to be true. And I've never had an earbud that made me feel confident that it's going to stay in, even though these are better at staying in than any other earbuds I've ever used. I will admit that. But if you are somebody who likes earbuds and who appreciates the form factor and doesn't find them difficult to keep in, and you actually care about the quality of the audio that's being produced, I really highly recommend these. The company is called Status, and the model of these is the Between Pro. And as I said, I think you can get them for about $100. They do use Apple's AAC Plus codec, whatever, Apple's high-resolution wireless audio codec. It's like their competitor to the Qualcomm aptX Bluetooth codec that's really high resolution and that works between Bluetooth wireless audio devices and Android phones. Well, Apple has its own high-resolution wireless Bluetooth audio codec thing, too. It involves AAC. I think it's ALAC, Apple Lossless Audio Codec. These do work with that. So unlike some devices, you know, that's one of the problems with iOS devices is a lot of wireless audio hardware that you would buy to use with your Apple devices. If they don't support ALAC, the Apple Lossless Audio Codec, then what's going to happen is you are instead going to be sending audio wirelessly using the old Bluetooth codec. So it's like the SBC standard Bluetooth audio codec. I think it's SBAC or SBC or something like that. It's just a standard original protocol Bluetooth audio codec that sounds like shit. It makes beautiful lossless audio sound like it's being played to you through a toilet bowl, through the water. So any wireless audio devices you buy to use with an iPhone, you're going to want to make sure that they support the Apple Lossless Audio Codec, or you're really sending yourself back to the year 2012 if you don't do that. Or the other alternative is to use an Android device that will support modern lossless audio codecs, such as Qualcomm's aptX and several other options. But I really recommend these. Because you're going to get a good experience whichever platform you're using. Again, the company is called Status, and the model of these are the Between Pro. Although they do have a number of different choices, these don't have any sound cancellation. They don't have any passive listening where you can hear the environment around you through the headphones. It's like getting reproduced in your ears. It doesn't have any of that, but I don't want any of that. I mean, the only noise canceling I need is the closing of my ear canal by shoving these things in there. And I obviously I don't want to hear the environment around me, or I wouldn't be using earbuds to begin with, dumb shit. So save yourself $100 or $75 or whatever the upcharge is for the passive listening or whatever they call it, where you can hear your environment, and for the noise cancellation, which, by the way, there's not a noise cancellation technology out there that isn't going to degrade the fidelity of the audio that you're listening to. Even if you're not able to consciously perceive it, if you're not able to actively, consciously perceive it, it is still occurring. If you're listening to something with active noise cancellation, it is going to occur at the cost of some audio fidelity. There's just no way around that. And if you care about audio fidelity, that's why you buy a set of headphones or earbuds like these to begin with. And why would you then turn around and use active noise cancellation, which is going to degrade the listening experience as far as I'm concerned? All you need is just having your ear canals plugged up. That's it. That's all the noise cancellation you ever needed. I don't know why we're building all this unnecessary shit into these earbuds. Anyway, I think that's about going to do it for me. And I really want to tell you that I had a good time here tonight. I'm glad I was able to do this. And I'm sorry that Curtis couldn't be here. But I am glad that I was nevertheless able to just sort of jump in here real quick and do a show with minimal prep, by the way. I just absolutely did, I think, no prep whatsoever. But to the novice, it might appear as though I prepared heavily. To the untrained eye, it might seem as if I really put some effort into this, but I can assure you I did not. Anyway, it's Spec Sheet. Take a look at our website. It is specsheet.tech. Everything you would want to know or care about related to this show is there. We've got a link to our Patreon. If you want to throw us a few bucks every month just as a tip of the hat to say thanks for doing the show, we sure would appreciate that. I can tell you that for sure. Anyway, you have a good night, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye now.